so many of you guys asked for a Barbarian spoiler conversation. Alonso has now seen it, so we can
Yes.
go all in. So if you've not seen Barbarian yet, maybe check back with us later. But if you have seen it, we're going to do it. We're going to share all the spoilers. Alonso, tell us what you thought of this movie.
This process might seem overwhelming.
I will, but by all means, I just want to say stop now if you haven't
Yeah.
seen Barbarian yet, because it's so great and it's more fun the less you know going in. So we're giving you all the warnings. Walk across the living room to press the button that you have to pause up. Okay, I loved it. I loved it. I had a great time. This is a movie that is very smart about keeping you on your toes. It does a lot of zagging where you're expecting a zig. The fact that the whole opening segment, you're like, is Pennywise going to do something terrible? Like the casting of Bill Skarsgård is genius.
Totally.
Then the fact that like you go to this like really horrible moment and then suddenly we're on the PCH with Justin Long and then another one, oh wait, no, and now it's 40 years ago. Like there's throwing a lot of stuff that wouldn't necessarily work, shouldn't necessarily work. But Zach Cregger, in his first horror film and his solo directorial debut, just keeps it all coming so brilliantly. And it's fun and it's funny and it's creepy and it's tense, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Same. And I said this with Dan Murrell when we talked about it without spoilers. Like, I love the credit that it gives us for like, we're going to shift gears now and we're not going to warn you and we're
Yeah.
not going to hold your hand and you got to follow along. And that's
Yes.
really exciting that he takes those kinds of risks with us, because it does keep you on your toes. It does kind of keep you on edge the whole time. And then like the use of horror, of humor rather, within the horror is so unexpected. Like in the most incredibly tense moment where Justin Long is discovering these like terrifying tunnels and like what's down there. And all I can think of is how
Square
do I
footage.
expand my square footage? And the fact that he just like picks up the tape measure and just keeps going, like weird shit's happening. And he's like, ooh, look at all this space back here. Like, again, that's such a daring tonal shift and it totally
Yes.
works.
Yeah, and I think there's so many little details along the way. The fact that like in the flashback, the woman in the drugstore is so accommodating to the creepy guy, with the home birth stuff, and how much that ties into this whole thing where it's like women in this movie are compassionate and the men for the most part are like just selfish monsters. The fact that like the cop is no help at all and the scary homeless guy is, all of these different things that you're expecting one thing to happen or to be a salvation or to be some sort of help and then is not at all. That's the shot where the guy leaves the drugstore and you're in the car with him and it's not moving and you're like, why are we here? What's in the frame? And then he sees the single woman getting in the car by herself and now he's going to follow her. It's like, so just all these, there's so many little grace notes like that throughout. I was really impressed.
I would say up until the very end, until like there's the explanation of, oh, here's what the gross old dude is doing.
Yeah.
Like it could be any number of things. Any number of creepy things could be going on down beneath that house.
Absolutely.
So the title is Barbarian, and I've had some folks ask in the comments, like, what does that mean? Where's the title come from? And I think it's just like big picture, the history of dudes going where they want and taking what they want in savage ways, between Justin Long, like trying to smooth over the date rape and like,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be okay, but really not caring, like
No.
wanting to cover his ass and take what he wants without consequence. And that's true of this guy too, underneath the building. I mean, maybe Bill Skarsgard is a good guy, and that's interesting too because you don't expect that from him.
Sure.
Because he's Pennywise. That whole first segment is so brilliantly paced and staged, and just everything you think is going to happen doesn't. Like when the door creaks open in the middle of the night, you're like, oh God, here he comes. And like, that doesn't pan out in bad ways.
Yeah, the whole thing where he keeps saying the right things and you think that's a red flag somehow, just like this movie is constantly fucking with you in the best way. And I think that's brilliant. But yeah, you're right. It is so much about, I mean, it is also Barbary Street, which is what where the house is. But yeah, it is the idea of Justin Long coming face to face with who he really is and then still being that, and like he doesn't you think he's maybe going to have some sort of redemption arc, but he doesn't take it. He's just constantly always looking out for himself. He can't even play along with the mother's delusion out of self-preservation. Like he still has to always like do the stuff his way and try and be in charge of the situation. The movie I think is really great also in that it could have really shoved your face into some horrible stuff that happens, but the labels on the VHS tapes tell you everything you need to know.
Redhead at gas station.
You don't need to see any of it to be like, oh God, and just the way that Justin Long's face is when he watches one of those tapes like that, that's it. And that is such confident filmmaking to not have to like, just imply it and make that be enough for the audience.
Yeah. And all throughout, like women are still like facilitating shit for him, for Justin Long. Like Georgina Campbell trying to tell him like, look, all she wants is for you to be her baby.
Yeah.
And he can't do that. The publicist on the phone is like, okay, we're going to walk you through this. Like everyone is still like coddling this guy. And rather than take that help and maybe it's eye opening to him, it just emboldens him further to be horrible. Let's talk about the scene at the top of the water tower, because a couple of our commenters have mentioned like, this is dumb. Like he pushed her first and then the mother fell. So why did she land on top of the mother?
Physics is the one class in high school that I failed, so I don't know the answer to that question.
2 pennies off at the same time.
Exactly. I don't know how the mother managed to catch up and turn around and save her life. We're just going to go with that. I had some questions about how the rental agency not only didn't know that 2 people rented at the same time, but didn't seem to know that anybody was there. But that could have to do with how much time has passed, and they didn't send a cleaner yet. So I'm willing to let that one go. But yeah, I think thematically the water tower stuff is very important, because you think maybe like the 2 of them are in it together because she should have run away and she comes back to save him, even as the cops think that she's a crackhead and don't want to pay attention to what she's saying and are like focused on all the wrong stuff. But no, he's a piece of shit to the very end.
Well, good. Well, this is fun, and we have to mention the needle drop at the start of the credits.
Remind me.
Dun, dun, dun,
oh yes.
dun, dun. I laughed and clapped. I'm like, yes, that is perfect.
That was a good one. Yeah, this movie is a gas. This has been a really strong year for horror movies. I mean, like Pearl is so great, and I've heard people compare this to Malignant, which I think is apt in terms of the like, I did not see that coming. So yeah, kudos, Barbarian. Had a blast.